Ciao ragazzi, buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, and buonasera to all of our laziali around the world. A little impromptu episode for us, a pre-derby chat with our great friend Michael Dimasio from Lazio, Toronto. Michael, how are you?
The anxiety is starting to set in. It's the vigil, right? The night before. So everything is coming fast, and prepare yourself. And if you're not prepared, you better start getting prepared, because the derby is going to hit you like a shot of espresso in the face in the early morning hours.
Yeah, I've had so much going on in my life right now that it's actually been a distraction for me from the Derby. So good or bad, I think I'm probably a little bit unprepared for tomorrow, which may serve me well.
I
It's
think so. I was gonna say
yeah,
that.
yeah. So, but obviously this is one of the most anticipated derby clashes for us in a while, given the characters involved, namely Maurizio Sarri and Jose Mourinho. And look, it's obviously a table right now in Serie A that's a little bit wonky. I think anything can happen, which is really the case in many years, but obviously at the top of the table, it's been so dominated by Juve. But right now, it's certainly interesting. It's up in the air for everybody. So a critical 3 points up for grabs. How are you feeling? I know you said anxious, the typical derby feeling, but given Lazio's performance, given coming off of a very underwhelming performance off the heels of Torino, how do you feel?
It's not great. Let's be honest. People are getting anxious, and that's not just me. It's shared across the community. And what I would say is there's probably some more patience with other people, even just being at the Lazio club on the weekend for the Cagliari match. There's this kind of a mix of emotions. It's like, let's give Sarri the time. This is a process. We knew it was going to be hard. And then there's more of another approach where I'm kind of sitting on the fence of, we had all of July, we had all of August, and now we've gone through September, and it still doesn't seem like the mechanism is working. So is this more of trying to beat a dead horse? Can we try to find some sort of fusion here? We have the players, or most of the players that he wanted to make this work. And it didn't help that he was suspended for the last two matches, Sarri. And I don't know how much of that is going to be an excuse, but we're grasping at straws now to try to find excuses. But at the end of the day, I think that all goes out the window for Sunday. It's an isolated game where the best part is form means nothing. And that, I think, will hopefully serve us well to just motivate us, because you also saw in the last 10 minutes of the Cagliari match, when you played Route 1 football, when you're behind and you're trying to catch up, they actually played their best the last 10 minutes of the Cagliari match.
Yeah.
And so it makes me wonder, how much stock are we putting into Sarri ball? Can we find some sort of happy medium that suits all the characteristics of the players? Because right now it's just not working. My patience is wearing thin personally.
Yeah, it's tough. But you mentioned it. I think when folks have asked me how I felt and any sort of predictions, I mean, this match has shown us that it seems, especially in recent year, that the team in the best form and the team that typically people feel most confident in going into the match, hands up, it tends to be the opposite direction. So maybe that bodes well for us. I really don't know what to think. I certainly expect to see the likes of Milinkovic-Savic and Luis Alberto wake up a little bit, because they have maybe been the two players I'm most disappointed in. Two players that have been pinpointed as two talented folks that should thrive under a Sarri system, and we haven't really seen that. Milinkovic-Savic has had some nice moments, but nothing really different from what we've seen from him in prior years. So look, but what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about the experience of the Derby, and this is awesome to have you on, because you run a fantastic club in Toronto. One of the best clubs out there as far as Lazio support goes. We need more of that around the world. But you've been privileged to see a derby in the Stadio Olimpico. Share some of that experience. What makes that match so unique?
I think before we can even get there, I think we have to talk about the community. Like you just talked about the community for a second, and there are a great group of Laziali around the world. And it's funny, the podcast is Lazio World, and it's so funny because there's Lazio Land, which is what's brought me into the family back in 2010 when I came to my first derby. Was thanks to Paolo Peroso and the crew of Lazio Land, and he wanted to create Lazio World himself. If you remember when Lazio Style Radio first came into frequency, there was an English portion called Lazio World. So I'm feeling as we're talking, I should probably coin or buy out the URL for Lazio Universe, because we have Lazio Land, we have Lazio World. We're going to have Lazio Universe pretty soon. And from a Shawn perspective, obviously, Shawn, we've met many years ago, as I still have this near and dear, Texas Laziali.
Absolutely.
You were a trailblazer in the south of the United States, and you reached out then. And listen, I mean, Lazio Club Canada was the first iteration of this. We've morphed because it was rather, I guess, a little bit on the arrogant side to take the whole country, even though we were the only real club in Canada, and we probably still are from an organized perspective, but we wanted to make it more regional, and we changed it to Lazio Toronto. But yeah, it's you got the scarf back there too. So
I was going to say, I hope you can see. I've got both, and I know it's a little bit dark, but I still have my Lazio Toronto and Texas Laziali scarves next to each other. So I hope to see more and more clubs around the world, because that's how we grow this thing. And a big part of this podcast and the different segments we do now with Lazio World is trying to provide some different content, different segments, and certainly speak to fans around the world to help not only share their experiences, but we know we're fighting together on a lot of just stereotypes about this club and its fan base. So I think it's really important, and social media, brings out a lot of bad, but there's obviously a lot of positive, and an opportunity for us to shine a brighter light on our fans and share our stories. And so, you guys have done such a great job. It's something that I wanted to do when I was in Texas, is just show people what this club is really all about. And we were able to, grow into a nice little group where we'd have 20, 30 people coming to watch Lazio matches. So, keep fighting the good fight up north, and hopefully, we see more of these groups sprout up around the world. So give us a little bit, though. When did you have the opportunity to go to a match, and how was that from the time you were in the city up to walking into Stadio Olimpico to where you sat and throughout the match? What was that like?
Yeah, right. Dal Vero Nord al Curva Nord, from the true north to the Curva Nord. That's Lib 10. I had already been before to the stadium, actually at Flaminio, which has been in the news a lot lately about Lazio taking it back and becoming making their stadium. And I'm all in on that. I think it's a great at Piazza Mancini there. Like, it is a perfect spot on the tram. For those who've taken it, they know that experience. It's actually much easier to get to than going to Stadio Olimpico, where sometimes you have to take two modes of transportation depending on what way you're coming from. But most people will go from Ponte Milvio, and that's what I did the first time I went. So in 2010, I had reached out to Paolo, and he arranged for my transportation to make sure that I was settled. We got the tickets in advance. We actually got to go on La Rai to do a bit of a feature. That was a really important derby in 2010, because for those remembering, that was Jose Mourinho, ironically's Inter, that was trying to do the tripletta at the same time. And Roma and Inter were neck and neck for the Scudetto. Lazio was battling relegation, and that's why I flew from Canada. I was single at the time. It was 2010, and I said, God forbid something happens here and I don't get to see my Lazio in Serie A again. I have to do this before it's too late. So, the derby, the magnetism of that game, especially that first derby I went to, was incredible. And I did everything in terms of check off the boxes, in terms of living the spirit of the game, which really is the days leading up to it. Like where we are right now, more so than the day of the game, where it's actually very festive in the first days leading up to it. I went to the Lazio fan store, met Enza, who just passed away this year. The only thing I didn't get to do the first pilgrimage was go to Formello, and because when the derby happens, usually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sometimes they'll do the Friday is an open practice for the fans. But in this particular one, because of the severity of the game, with the fact that Lazio was fighting relegation, Roma is trying to win the Scudetto, they kept it closed. So we had missed out on the last day. And so unfortunately that, you get to meet so many people around the world, and the Lazio English speaking community is huge. Thank God for Lazio Land. We had a dinner the Saturday night, and then here we are Sunday for the game. And all of a sudden, it's almost becomes like an old Western where the streets are kind of deserted leading up to the match. I remember going to the Vatican, for my religious beliefs. I was hoping that would translate into a success in the match. And all of a sudden, you start walking by the same stores that were very festive in the days leading up to it, and nobody wants to talk. Nobody's interested. Everybody looks on edge, and that's really it. You're there 3 hours before the game. You're drinking outside some strega or the beers. And the one thing I love about Europe is like you buy the big bottle of beer and you get the plastic cups and everybody's outside having a panino. And so then it becomes festive a little bit again, and the chants are happening outside Ponte Milvio. And, then you start entering the stadium 2 hours before. The reason why people go in so early is because of the checks. You have to go through 2 or 3 points of checks. At least in 2010, I felt like there was only one, but since then it's changed. And if you want to talk to a guy who really understands the derby and what it's like, the painful defeat of it, I've been to 2 derbies and both of them have been on the losing end. So I'll tell you right now, you won't catch me at a derby for a very long time. I'm not the best of charms for in terms of luck for games. So to the 2010 one, we remember how that went. Sergio Floccari was in fine form, and then all of a sudden it seemed like his career stopped in that game after he missed the penalty. And that's one that I'll carry for a long time. Ledesma getting the red card, Zada going to do too much on his own. And unfortunately, I went back in 2016 to try to redeem those for a little bit of redemption, and that was Pioli's last match in charge in a half-empty stadium. So I'm really glad we're having a chance to talk about the spirit of the derby, because really since 2016, I feel like there's been a lot of moments where we've lost that spirit. There's been empty stadiums for protests. There's been a pandemic. I don't know. I was really encouraged. And then I was worried too, because you went behind enemy lines during this week as well, which is, almost taboo in a sense, because I know people live the derby 365 days out of the year there, but there's just no friends. Like, I just can't say that I have any Romanista friends, like real friends that I can say are Romanisti. So, I mean, I'm not into that. So, it's great that you guys were able to do that. But I'm glad that hopefully with a full, or as much a full stadium as possible on Sunday, that we'll get that spirit again. You saw the Striscioni, a Domenica Bastardi. So I think the spirit will hopefully be alive and well. And we hope to encapsulate, I'm losing my words here, try to encapsulate all that here on Sunday in Toronto.
Yeah, look, I'm glad you mentioned that. I caught a little bit we caught some flack on social media today for going behind enemy lines, and a big piece of that for us is, we know that Lazio doesn't get a ton of content, and that's why we created and joined forces with some great guys in Alistair and Vittorio at Lazio Lounge, sure. To combine with Steven and myself to bring Lazio World. But part of that is knowing what we don't know. So I'm never going to pretend to know a club like Roma as much as a Romanista. And so for us, I want to make sure, because, calcio content is underserved anyways. And certainly we're never getting spotlighted on our matches as much as we would like to. And so, in order to give people good information and make sure that they're educated ahead of a derby to understand our opponent, the goal of segments like Behind Enemy Touchlines is to have conversations with those experts to understand the opponent, so that us as fans can come into this match, with some of that tactical edge, some of the players, just understanding who it is that we're facing. So, yeah, to your point, the Derby, look, it's not about making friends. And I do know some Romanisti that aren't quite so terrible. But those segments for us is about giving Lazio fans the opportunity to hear from some of those experts. We've brought in folks, especially during Champions League and now Europa, clubs that people are even less familiar about, so that we can go into it understanding who we should be looking for, how do they come in playing. I hope our fans that tune in understand the purpose of those segments. It's not to, shake hands and hug, before the Derby, but really it's to provide some information because, yes, I watch those matches, but I'm not watching every Roma match. That's for certain. When I tune into their matches, I'm watching it with a much different perspective, and I'm rooting for the worst to happen to them. So, I hope people understand the point is to bring some value to Lazio fans. It's not about the Romanista. It's not about that side of things. It's just bringing some value to our fans so they know what they're getting into. But I digress.
No, it was not throwing shade or anything, but really, I just felt I just used that as an example of maybe the spirit dying down a little bit over the last few years. But I would love to do a deep dive and be back on with you guys maybe after the Derby. It's just obviously your life is moving so fast. Mine is too. There's a lot of distractions going on. So I honestly have to bow out of any future discussions right now. But I'm glad you had a chance to talk about the rationale behind it. I think it's really important because, like you said, you caught some flack on it for social media. And I just appreciate you guys fighting that good fight and even having me on. And I apologize for having to get off early, but such is life. We will continue to be brothers and fight that good fight in North America at least. So thanks, Shawn.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that Michael, you want to throw out there before you head out that you really want people to know about attending a Derby?
Aside from that, we'll get into that probably by the second one. We'll see how this pans out. But I'll never forget seeing grown men and women cry, and that's what I want people to take away. This has lived pretty strong in Rome, and so when people make fun of it or maybe don't take it so seriously here, people have to go to work every day there, and they have to work alongside each other. So it's the teasing is one thing, but it can get pretty in there. So yeah, just remember that everybody's different, and it's a bit of a different world when you're actually living it.
Yeah. Awesome, Michael. Well, look, man, this was good. Again, great talking to you prior to. Let's hope for the best. I know we're not as confident going into this one as usual, but hopefully that works in our advantage. And fingers crossed. Rest easy tomorrow, and hopefully we're all able to pop some champagne bottles and move on because we need this one.
Absolutely. All right. A Roma la Lazio, c'è solo la Lazio.
Allora.